This podcast is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Black Acres Roastery. Black Acres Roastery is an artisan coffee roaster located in the Highlandtown district of Baltimore. Every roast, they strive to bring out the best qualities in unique coffees from around the world. They ethically source beans and curate roasting profiles that provide each cup of coffee a story. My favorite is Midnight Train, a dark roast with notes of cocoa nibs, graham cracker, and stone fruit. Delicious. Also, check out their cold brew. Temperatures are changing, so cold brew is going to be in effect. So stay woke and check out their website, www.blackacrescoffee.com. Tell them Rob Lee sent you. What's shaking, cats and kittens? This is Rob Lee from Mastermind Team's Robcast. I am the Rob in Robcast, the Silver Linings Playboy, the American Wave, the Midnight Snack Rob Lee. Get it straight. For all of you guys out there listening, we do a podcast, me and my silent partner here.
Yep, Torn, you know. Probably the cool one out of the group, but you know.
I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate.
I have to be.
Say more about this.
I mean...
It's just like, get yourself over as the cool guy.
I'm the cool guy. Look, listen to my voice. That's it.
You're as cool. You're Kawhi Leonard. You're the Kawhi Leonard of this podcast.
Oh, shit.
I'm a fun guy. I'm a cool guy. So listen to us every week. We cover weird news, pop culture, entertainment. The cool guy, Torn, don't call me Tron, and me, Rob Lee, the King Snake, the Thoughts of Doom, the man with 101 aliases. And we're on every week on MTR Podcasts, and that is mtrthenetwork.com. That is on Apple, Spotify, everywhere podcasts are found. Those are going to be MTR Podcasts. Look for us on YouTube and check us out on the Instagram account and Facebook, both at MTR Podcasts. Check us out every Tuesday. New episodes are dropping. Subscribe today. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and my next guest is a Baltimore-based cultural producer, creative consultant, and polymath. We have Aaron Brown. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And the crowd goes wild.
Exactly.
I almost want that like 96 Bulls like theme.
No, okay. You definitely need the like, he's on fire. Like 3 good tangents in a row. You got to throw that out there. That's the summer sound pack. It'd be the summer sound pack.
That would be fantastic. I have this this new device I need to learn how to use in the process of getting a new computer, and I can load it with sound. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely going to be something that'll be integrated. It's going to work for the comedy podcast a little bit better. But so I gave that, I'm going to say 20. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I say 30. Sometimes I say 10. Mm-hmm. That 20,000 foot view of what you are doing with the titles and all. But let's talk about your work and describe what you do.
Okay. So I love that we start with the hardest question to answer. So I'll run through each of them. So culture producer, what the hell does that mean? I think I find myself as somewhat of almost a cultural anthropologist. I feel myself as more of a scientist than an artist per se. But I spend time observing, integrating and like learning and appreciating various circles, communities, cultures, whatever you want to call that. And in return, I find narratives, I find stories, I find things that are of interest, and I produce things based on those findings or based on those revelations that come from time spent within various communities and various circles. That's what I would say is the cultural production piece. The creative producer, or the creative consultant, I should say, that's almost respect to my academic background, only because I didn't go to school for fine art. I didn't go to school for business. I didn't go to school for science. I went to school for, well, technically a science. I went to school for communication, specifically communication theory. So I was one of those kids that was going to be a mass comm, be an advertiser, be a marketing kid, and realized the GPAs are way too high, the majors are way too screened, and the fields are already kind of full of nepotism in a way that it doesn't behoove you to start at the bottom. You kind of have to hit the ground running with that sort of stuff. And I had a phenomenal advisor that said, Aaron, do you want to be in college for like another 3 years? Or do you want to get a track, get a major that'll fit you and get out of here with like maybe a semester more under your belt? Because mind you, I was a transfer student. I did high school, community college, I'm a big proponent of community college, and then I went to university. But yeah, out of respect for just the science behind what I studied, I call myself a creative consultant because I do the business side or the marketing side of what fine art or just general creativity can be, and then give it to those people that need it, be they businesses or artists, to go in the direction that they're trying to go, knowing it's been at least rinsed through someone that understands their side and the side they're looking to engage with. And then the polymath is all the other shit that I do. So that's the photographer, that's the DJ, that's the event planner, that's the creative director, that's the producer, that's the general public figure title that I didn't choose, that the algorithm gave me and I just ran with. I just knew better than to change a good thing and just run with it. But that's the 30,000 foot view of what I would say that I'm doing.
That works. I would classify you as a tastemaker. that's what I try to hit on.
That's definitely in there.
Yeah. And I think definitely taking advantage of what your academic background is and applying that to people who are in the space, like going back far to like episode 1 when I had a conversation with James Nasty. He's like, that's a thing homie. That is, he's a good dude. That's the thing that that role isn't always available, that people can just access it and then figure out what they're doing to ultimately get their shit straight, get their shit sorted, that it's meaningful outside of the creative pursuit, but it's meaningful of who they're trying to engage with and how they're trying to engage with them.
Exactly.
Like
100%.
My background was in marketing before I got into this, but it was in marketing analysis because the good old BS degree. And I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. And it's funny when I talk to people about trying to market this podcast and market this network and this brand, I was like, I don't have any fucking idea. I can give you the analysis around it, but as far as reaching out to people, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what I am. So speaking on that, actually, it kind of segues into that next question. So with your work, what ideas, concerns, or objectives have motivated that? Like, where's that need coming from that you're like, okay, this is for me?
Okay. So first and foremost, as someone that is not from Baltimore, like in general, like I come from PG, so I'm from the other side of Maryland, but I moved here and I just became engrossed and in love with the city because I had I call it the designer experience. If I had the right people at the right time in the right era of the city to get involved in stuff early. But like my number one goal, I would have to say, is like I'm pushing for Baltimore just to be more recognized as a creative hub. Maybe not a mecca, but definitely a hub where it is going to cultivate what is the next global creator class. I think beyond the local, beyond the national, it could create the next global creative class with enough of the right eyes on it. So that's my first goal, or my first objective. But also, like I alluded to this earlier, I'm out to improve business acumen. I think that it is something that, especially for creatives, and I love creatives as you can have your fine artist, your entrepreneur, your small medium business owner, your influencer, what have you. Like they're all effectively creatives in the core capacity, but each of them is missing, like you said, parts of the other side of the dialogue that would help them get where they need to go. So I do a majority for, young artists in the visual arts and the music scene. Those are my two buckets I spent time in. But it goes down to saying when I was in a position to have sponsorship dollars is, hey, I want to work with you. I'm going to work with you and I'm going to walk you through how to do this so that the next time that you want to approach somebody or someone approaches you, you get what I'm going to give you. And it came down to like, here's the package. I'm going to tell you what the package is. I'm going to send you a contract. You're going to sign this contract. You're going to send me an invoice and you're going to send me these documents that are government documents because I have to keep it on the level. But in turn, I'm going to walk you through the steps because you're also my homie and I want you to succeed so that you can carry this knowledge on to the next thing you do. And in turn, the next person you work with. But then also, I just want to highlight that, I guess my third tenet would be, I'm here to highlight that creativity exists in more than just fine art, visual art, music, and the traditional circles that art is defined in. I think that, for example, public speaking, which covers podcasting and paneling, is in itself inherently creative. I think that there are people that cover the analytical side. They make numbers dance more than they can make people dance. So there's an inherent art to or creativity to all of this. And really it's a level of mindfulness for both yourself and your passions and your craft and those in the circles that you're in to really highlight and push those to the farthest they can go by being just simply in the circle with those people at the time of. I think those are my 3 tenets that I would hang my various hats on.
Various hats. We'll talk about hats later, probably.
Yes, we will.
That's great. Like it's missing all the time. And you just see like, all right, one of the things, and I want to hear your vantage point on this. One of the things that I've been playing around with is I don't know how successful someone from Baltimore would be because I haven't seen it for one, like super, like that high level. And I tried to answer the question because I started asking people early on, who is the pop culture representative of Baltimore? And then I would even make it more focused. Who's the Black pop culture representative of Baltimore? I don't know. And I think people don't go as high here because we're so authentic, and in that space, you have to be a certain degree of fake to kind of move ahead. And because of that non-bullshit, Baltimore is looked at as a proving ground in some ways. In many ways, people will come here, cut their teeth, and then move on to another place. But someone that's coming from here, that's why we celebrate them so much. It's like, yo, that's the guy right there. That's the homie. We know him. But then it's like, yeah. And then they flamed out and back to Baltimore. It's in your experience and being here as a person that has come here. How do you feel about that?
So I feel torn because I represent the community of people that come here not to cut their teeth or prove themselves, although that is definitely what happened in my time in the various scenes. But I think that there is I won't say unity because people are united around some very key things that are important, but there's an opportunity to improve the consistency and the cohesion with which things get done. And that's also just part of generally being more educated and or more experienced in what you're doing. There are some people that will learn that by failing multiple times. And there are people that will do the research on those failures, understand and unpack what happened, and they'll work in a tangential, or I should say parallel, but not identical fashion, and they might get a little bit further. But I do think that also there's a level of timeliness that we can't control. And I think that that's a big part of what quarantine, that's a big part of what, in what regard, in a bittersweet way, you want to say, the Freddie Gray riots and everything that transpired post that, there's a lot of things that just needed time to incubate and then thusly come to fruition that have changed the landscape. Now it's much easier for anybody from any part of the country or the world to have a platform. And there's always been quality talent here. The platform the playing field of the platform just hasn't always been as level. And now we've got people that have historically, are getting on Fade, or people that have historically traveled to Europe and do those things. They're getting their second 15 minutes. They're getting their second dance in the sun almost. And it becomes almost like the renaissance that was asked about a decade ago is happening. In my opinion, when I got here in 2012, I told myself in 10 years, Baltimore's going to be Brooklyn. Like I just said it to myself because I had a feeling that was going to be the thing, and I'm prone to make brash, mental leaps like this. And we're 8.5 years into my 10-year forecast, and we're already Brooklyn.
Browstradamus, yeah.
But there's patterns you can see, and it does take a certain type of person that kind of identifies those patterns and really remembers them. And maybe that person wouldn't have been born here from the city. Maybe they had to come here, or maybe someone does have that and they need to see it exist in a way to act on it. I think that could also be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny. I tell a story on occasion where I was up in New Jersey with a lot of artist types that had connections to Brooklyn. My partner, she's from Brooklyn. And it was funny. It was like all these theater people, all these people with this different musicians, all of this stuff, New York people, they're like, yeah. So Rob, since you're from Baltimore, I was like, shit, I got to defend Baltimore. And I'm down to do it, but I'm like, yeah, I'm outnumbered here. This is not going to go right. This is like the movie Hero with Jet Li in it. This is not going to go right for me. And she just chimed in. She was like, well, I'm the only one that was born in New York, and it's going to be like Brooklyn. It actually is already becoming like Brooklyn. This is 2 years ago. And she was like, this is why I'm invested in it. She was just on a rant. And she was just like, the food's better than this place. I was like, all right, points, and just going to bat for it. Some people see it, and it's great when people are celebrating it. Now it's that thing of, are we able to get some of those resources, that timeliness, going back to that? Are some of those resources going to start popping up and be distributed in an equitable way where people that look like me, people that look like you, that might be getting it instead of being told that there's a pie that has 8 slices, but 5 of those slices are already earmarked. They're already going to be distributed. So obviously what you're doing, you're around artists, you're around creative types, and I'm glad that you associated us podcasters, us lowly podcasters, and that creative
top of the table, 100%.
So describe the importance of being in a company of artists. How's that been for you?
So I, as someone who does artistic things but does not consider himself inherently an artist, I tell people that I am more a curator than I am an actual artist per se. Like, I can take what exists and I can make it beautiful and I can present it in a way that is attractive, but I am merely the conduit for the things that I am around. I am merely a product of the circles I'm in. So to end waxing philosophic for a sec, I think that there is a strong benefit to operating amongst multiple circles and finding and getting to the truth and the art of their circles, to, self-plugging again. I got you. But think about it. Like, there's people that spend all their time around capitalists, or that spend all the time around, pharma people, or spend all the time around, you name. Those conversations become the dreaded echo chamber that doesn't ever escape itself. It's just constantly reverberating the same pieces. Now, with that, I would say that you have an opportunity to be the dent in the echo chamber that forces the sound and forces the walls to reverberate differently, because you are obtuse. You're not fitting in 100% that's there. I'll end this analogy before it gets too extended. But I think that personally, the number of circles that I exist in are as wide as the number of neighborhoods in Baltimore City, which I believe is 128, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. It's a random factoid that I think may be true, but it's over 120 as far as I remember, of actual neighborhoods. And each of those is someone that's worth being involved in, but I'll dovetail it with this. My elevator pitch on how to get to the best things in Baltimore is, and especially within the arts community, is you got to find 10 of the right people. The right 10 people in Baltimore City will get you 1,000 doors. Will get you everything that you need, every place you want to go to, every good recommendation, every place to avoid. It'll give you guidance and insight and wisdom. That being said, there are hundreds of those 10 people in the city. You just got to find 10. And usually if you find one, you get 2 or 3 of them that are over there. But those people that you're around give you access to what I think are the 3 most important bits of capital that you'll need in the city, in any capacity, beyond Baltimore even. It'll get you access to people, which is what we always want. Get your foot in the door, you spin your tail, somebody buys into it because they believe in it, you carry on that relationship. They'll get you access to resources. Maybe they can't pay you, but they'll give you all the goods you need to get what you need done. If that's a location, if that's permitting, if that's equipment, if that's day laborers, if that's, video, photo, whatever is happening, giving you access to those, goods for services, so to speak. Yeah. And then the last thing everybody wants, you'll find the money. You spend time in the extra circles, you will find the money. And I say that as someone who's in these circles, who in my stint as the brand manager for Natty Bo, I was a beer fairy. I gave away resources. I gave away finances. I had a budget for it and I gave it away. And I managed to stretch a very small budget across a calendar year doing a bunch of cool stuff. And then also I had access to a bunch of people. I had access to other brands that had money, people that didn't look like me, didn't look like you, didn't look like us, that were able to say, this person's got the right idea and this person says that this is the thing. Yeah, I'm interested. You have my attention. That's the benefit of existing in all circles as you can possibly do, and finding the art or finding the connecting thread amongst all of those circles to yourself.
How do you honor working with Baltimore-based artists, creatives, while not being tied to that negative reputation that's associated with Baltimore?
This is a great question. I was excited to see this one, and I would love to go into this. So I think that first and foremost, to preface all this, there's a ton of mindfulness around the intent behind what happens with a lot of the work and a lot of the things that I do with Baltimore and Baltimore-based artists. So one of those things is I constantly remind myself that I am a transplant within the city. So my perspective is inherently going to be not better and not worse, just different. And that is the way that I pitch every perspective I have, is that whatever we're doing is to offer a different perspective on that which already has its own existing worth and merit and light that is being shown on it, be it good, bad, or indifferent. We're looking to change that with the work that we do. So that's the thing that I work with. And to give a brief example, to roll the clock back to 2013 when I first started going into the city, because I went to Towson. I'm from PG. I actually moved to the last street in Baltimore City before Towson begins in the county. And so I've been living in the city the entire time. I've been paying city tax the entire time I've lived there. No, Walker Avenue was the last street.
Okay, I'm over there. I'm over there from Govins.
I know exactly where you are. Oh, I know exactly the exact area. I lived right over there the entire time I was an undergrad. So I would live there, and I would just take York Road to 29th to Maryland, all the way down to the city, just get into the city and do whatever I'm doing. So, before I became a photographer, I spent 2 years driving to the city and just going to the shows, going to the events, getting to know the people. And this is like 2013, 2014. So it's like, it's DDM, it's Jacob Marley, it's, the Crown's originating class, so to speak, and the surrounding areas. So I got to meet these people when they were still themselves getting the mold for their artsmanship. That's not a word, but their artistry, I should say. The mold was hardened, and I just wanted to get to know them. I would say, hey, I don't want to give you anything. I don't want to take anything. I want to get to know the community, because this is a place that I want to be invested in, and you're someone that I'm around. So I would just ask really insightful questions about them and what they were doing. And I would predicate it on, when I ask you how you're doing, I expect a genuine answer. I don't expect you to placate and just throw the question away. If I'm asking how you're doing, if I'm taking the effort to do that, I'm not wasting any energy on questions I don't want answers to. That's not the type of time that I'm on. So when I ask a question, even if it's a platitude like, how are you doing? I would love to hear about how you're doing, about what you're doing that's got you feeling this way. And that's been my thing for years. So when I did bring my camera back out after a 5-year break from taking photos, I said, I don't want to take photos of the show. I want to take photos of you. I want to take photos of my friends. I want to take photos of the things my friends are doing and how that stuff makes them feel and how it shows on them. And being a 6'2", 215-pound man now, even when I was a little smaller, I was not a small boy. I was not a small man. I was getting fly on the wall shots through the access I had to my friends, not by being, I'm this hotshot photographer, not to knock people that are great photographers, but it was, I want to be a part of your narrative of your life. I want to be a person that's that's the homie. He took these pictures of me in this time. And then when they get their, 30 for 30 or equivalent, they can just say we had these dope ass pictures, and I get to be a part of their narrative no matter where it goes. And then you do that for, several years, and you just continue to get to different circles and different sections. My last two jobs are from my last two corporate salaried jobs. Post my last job I really had in the mid-level work, I got because I knew people. It was nepotism in a sense of not you're someone that's close to me. It's I know you, and I know that you stand for good things and you're known for good work. I want to give you this opportunity. That's the kind of thing that I was given, and I want to be that conduit for people, and I want to give people the keys to get to that point on their own and in their own circles in whatever direction they're trying to go to.
It's doing the good work there.
Exactly. Community focused.
I've gotten some opportunities in that way, and I'm a 6'4", 300-pound black man.
We're big guys. We're big people. Yeah. Once you're past 180, you're a big dude.
And people always think I'm short too, which is hilarious. And they see me, it's like, "Oh, that's you." I was like, "Yeah." You're like, "How's it going?" Pretty much. And I try to do just something in that community space, you being a person that's a big guy, but also friggin' shy. It's just like, all right, let's figure out how can I endear myself, because it's the same thing. As you were saying, I'm not asking questions just to ask them. Actually, I'm really invested and I want to know. And people remark on the type of questions I may ask and hear or how the interviews generally go. It's like, I'm interested. I'm not just like, oh, this person's cloudy, let me talk to him. I don't care. And, but I'll try to do these things, whether it be, hey, I got an extra $100. Cool sponsor came through. Let me do the whole AMC thing. Let me get this whole theater. Let's watch Batman Returns and let's have a good time. It's on me. Thank you for being a part of what I'm doing. And thank you for helping me get this podcast. I always, appreciate the interviews and being brought in as a visitor, because I think part of it is you're allowing someone to come into your space and what your narrative is. So I see it from an audio perspective and what I'm doing, because I don't want to have to sit there and tell me about any of the cool stuff that they're doing. And I've had people reveal stuff on podcasts. I was like, oh, I didn't know about that little habit, or I didn't know you had that experience. And they realize afterwards, like, wow, I haven't talked about that in 20 years. So it's it's a vulnerable thing. And I don't take it for granted. So I read that storytelling is your thing. So what are some of the traits of good storytelling, and how can someone sharpen that skill?
Okay, so I definitely love to talk about this one. The tough thing to do with this is storytelling has become a buzzword. In the time in which I learned it academically, in the time in which I've practiced it as an artist of whatever capacity, creative or whatever capacity, and the time of this interview, it has become the new, it's the new aesthetic. It's the new vibes. That's the new buzzword that's being thrown around. And storytelling is not a very pretty thing. And we're trying to make something that is inherently very intentional, very cerebral. At times, it can be very sinister if you're using the act of storytelling to spin, for example. It's part of why I chose not to pursue that in my GPA. I chose not to pursue mass comm. It was like, I spent all this time padding a GPA, lying to people that I was good enough to do this thing, which I was already able to do, to then learn a very niche way to take communication theory and to spin it for the purpose of getting a point across in a very specific way for a very specific purpose, usually for pay. I've got a little bit more of a bleeding heart than that. And as everyone that knows me knows, I'm not motivated by money. So you can't pay me to do something because it'll make, you can't put a dollar sign in front of it to make me entice me further. I'm big on saying no. I'll say no to everything. I'll pass it to someone before I even say yes. It's like, I'll do it, but I want you to know if I wind up not being able to do it, I'm going to find someone to get this done for you, or no, this doesn't really jive with me and I'm not going to, support this thing. But that's the thing. For storytelling though, to get to the main point, I think that one of my old bosses from my Apple days put it very succinctly. And I think that the biggest guiding principle for me for storytelling is getting to the why behind the what. What is it that is going to be engaging in the story? Okay, cool. We know what that is. That's on the board. We have that. Why the fuck is it engaging? What about it makes it worth your attention, your time, your emotional investment? So, and we're talking about storytelling that's not following the traditional intro, rising, climax, falling, end, or the traditional folk tale of Journey to the West. Those are the two best examples of storytelling as we see it. And they kind of get conflated with, oh, well, how can I hawk something to somebody? And I think the good story it simply evokes an emotional response or investment, depending on if that's your goal. But it evokes an emotional response by the audience. You get to choose what that is. You get to be surprised by what it is. But all good storytelling, or most good storytelling, to not generalize it, is predicated on evoking emotion. I think that's really where storytelling does its best. And then in terms of to sharpen the skill, aside from headbutting the wall of creativity and seeing when you eventually break through it until you hit the next wall, I am an avid YouTuber. I subscribe to YouTube University. I don't watch Hulu. I don't really watch Netflix. I watch anime and I watch YouTube video essays. Those are the two things you will find me watching 9 times out of 10. But I've used it to supplement education I missed like academics. Like I've learned how to read art in museums. I've learned cinematography techniques and color grading theory and things that I use in my daily practices as a creative. But also, like, I subscribe to stuff like people that analyze and delineate basketball and like pop culture and automobiles and like things that I don't particularly care about, but I know that it's part of the larger cultural zeitgeist and it benefits me to know. So I take the time out of my day to learn about it. And I find people that are storytellers of things that I don't care about. And that's how I learn to care about them. That's probably my strongest thing. So I tell people, like, if you don't have the bug or you have an idea, but you're not sure how to refine the idea to a point where you're comfortable acting on it, watch other people do it and learn. Or as Picasso would call it, steal.
I enjoy stealing. And no, that's important. Like because my day job, I'm a data analyst, and one of the things I started applying to it and always adding to it, and always trying to get better at what I'm doing is start just asking those 5 whys. Just start getting down to the next level. Why is this happening? But why is that happening? And then you eventually get to it. And sometimes it's so simple, especially with people. Sometimes I'll listen to a story and it's like, I'll smug sniff with it because I do that. It's like a detail is missing.
It feels kind of hollow. It feels like there's yeah. And I love that you said that you're a creative with a day job, because we'll talk about that later, I feel. But we definitely wax about that. But I think the one last thing that I just realized is like a personal anecdote that I've learned from. Part of good storytelling is having your own experiences to build from for your storytelling. So like I am a child of the suburbs of PG County. I was born in Silver Spring, but I'm also like a quintessential like broken home Black child. I come from a single parent household. Like my mom got married when I was 19, so I had to deal with a stepfather that I've known my whole life, trying to be a father when I'm already kind of a mold of a person. And I'm like, there's tread, like the tread is worn on the tires of my life story. And I like it that way, because it means when I come to storytell, I can see a lot of perspectives, and therefore I can do better work because I can meet better needs. So like the more things you do, the more comfort zones you exist outside of for yourself, the better your storytelling will be. That's my last point. There we go.
That's great. That is because I'm stealing, I'm stealing everything that you're saying.
As you should.
You're a different version of what I'm saying. This is much more refined. I'll have a lot of F-bombs in there and dick jokes. So yeah, cool. Because like I think definitely the storytelling resonates with me the same way that I think when I try to talk to people about art, I've had people reach out like, oh, you do an art podcast? How am I supposed to feel about art? It's like, what is this question? But do you feel something? That's where I start off at. And I think, does it evoke something? It's the same thing with storytelling. And I look at some of the goofy stuff I do on my other show, and we cover weird news and pop culture. And sometimes I do a show. If I was like doing a solo pod and just going, it's like I get nothing. I get nothing from it. But having a co-host, and I'm just on the internet all the time looking for these weird, odd things. And I'll throw out a story or something. He's like, oh my God, where did this happen? And I was like, yeah, this is great. This is working. And then we kind of improv based on that. We were just running bits based off of that. It's like, here's a story, riff on it for 5 minutes.
Love it.
And people don't get it, but it's like, this is my version of why am I interested in this? Because this doesn't seem normal to me. Why doesn't it seem normal? Because people don't do this.
It's the Florida man principle.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's Germany. Germany or Florida. So I read that you wear many hats, figuratively and literally. What are your favorite hats in both of these kind of spaces?
I'm glad that you asked that, because I actually wrote down my initial thought of like, I'm going to split this up between a physical hat and a figurative hat. So despite the fact that I'm wearing a hat, which I love this bucket hat, I love this profile bucket hat. It's been a move for me recently. I am going to grab specifically this blue Phoenix trucker hat. This is one of my favorite hats, if not, this is easily top 3 favorite hats, if not my number 2 favorite hat, I want to say. Reason why this is one of my favorite hats, it is my favorite color. I am a Pisces baby. I was born on March 5th. Blue is my color. Water is my signs. Blue is a color that has been wrapped around me for much of my life. Sky and water. So this is also one of my favorite hats because of some of the minor details. I got this hat during quarantine, after I ended a 5-year relationship, I got laid off from work, quarantine happened, and I had to relocate back to a different part of the city. So all those things happened all within a 6-week period of themselves. Oh, no. And I just spent like an entire year. I spent an entire year during quarantine pretty much just like slumming it. All of 2020, I slummed it and just lived off of savings that I had from various jobs that I pulled. This was one of the first things I bought for myself when I got one of the Donnie Buck, when I got the Donnie Buck stimmy. Donnie stimmy was what got me some clothes. And I bought this hat just because I liked it, but also leather accent. I love a leather strap on the back of the hat.
I do too.
And also, it's a constructed trucker hat. There's no mesh on the side. It's all fabric all around. I love this kind of trucker hat. Also, cool. It's shaped properly for those of us with larger heads. It fits properly. Get your little point on the top as well. But lastly, it says Phoenix. I have a weird childhood story. My mother worked for a law firm in DC. This law firm may or may not have worked on the Enron cases, and she was a trainer there. So she spent a lot of time training people on computers. They had an office in Arizona, in Phoenix specifically, and that was one of the first places outside of the East Coast I ever traveled to, was Phoenix. I am in love with the high desert. That's that whole region. That's New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, and Arizona, those 4 big states that nobody knows what to do with. That's the high desert. I have always loved it. It is possibly part of the heritage. Like I have a lot of North African, Arab heritage, like just genetically. So maybe it's some kind of similarity just at a genetic level that I love, but I love the dry heat. I love the sun. I love the earth tones that are everything. It's a very brown, natural location. And it's also just like a place where you can get away from stuff. There's things to do and you can escape if you need, but I got a lot of love for Phoenix and the high desert. So that is one of my favorite hats. In terms of figurative hats, my serious answer is the creative director / producer, because I'm a tech child at heart. I grew up in back of house. I grew up doing backstage work. That's where I've always felt at home. So it's where I find the most internal satisfaction. If I'm talking about the most fun hat to wear, figuratively, it is 200% being a DJ. DJ is without a doubt the most fun hat. Specifically, I'm a black house DJ that's under the age of 35 in Baltimore, playing house music for young people.
House is fire. I'm 36, and it's one of those things. My partner is like, she's of that era. She's like, oh yeah, Jungle Brothers, yeah, just this is the tunnel. We're like, oh, like what? Like we're like, this is what I listened to in the 90s. I'm like, oh, all right. And she'll put me on, and she's like, oh, you did a deep dive, didn't you? I was like, this is what I do. You give me just a little bit of space, and then suddenly, yeah, I'm into this.
You give me an inch, I take a country mile. That's how it works. Yeah. That's the gopher lifestyle. And like at 31, so I did it. I didn't even start being a DJ until someone asked me about it after I made a public Facebook status about it and didn't do it. Classic Pisces escapism. And someone asked me how it was going. I felt so bad. I went on Facebook Marketplace, found a controller, and bought it within 48 hours. And then I spent 3 months for 4 hours a day, every day after work, learning and teaching myself how to DJ through YouTube.
I'm dating a Pisces, and so I definitely it's just really been this mantra of let's just do the thing. And I was like, I think this is for you, not for me, because I just ride the wave. I'm an Aquarius. I just ride the wave, literally. And it's like, I think this is to keep you on point, isn't it?
Sometimes you need an accountability partner as a Pisces. I digress. That's enough Pisces slander.
We're full of. Yeah. So I had a few more questions before we wrap up here. You touched on anime a second ago. So what else do you enjoy doing when you're not working on your creative practice?
Oh, see, I'm one of those terrible people that finds a way to keep all of his creative passions at the barely professional stage where I get paid for them pretty much whenever I'm doing them. But I often do passion projects because I love doing those things and I want to give those to the people. But to answer your question properly, I too am getting back in the gym. I'm getting back into lifting after not being able to afford it for the last year because of quarantine. So now we are properly employed. I can actually, do the pay for things. So I'll be getting back into regular weightlifting, not powerlifting, mostly as physical therapy, partially as, mental, emotional therapy, because just working out keeps me at peace and gets the frustration out of me.
Yeah.
But I'm also a bike rider. Like, I ride a road bike. I'm prone to be in the streets. If you don't see me on a Lime scooter going way too fast with headphones in, you'll catch me on a bike going way too fast with headphones in. That's a big thing for me. And then also, I am also getting back into rollerblading, like aggressive inline. That's been a thing that I did ever since I was 16. I had a pretty nasty injury in 2015 that took my knee out for several years. And part of my lifting has been getting my body back into fit enough shape to be able to handle skating again. So I've been like getting back into that. I've always been a fan of it. I've always been sharing, and I've always been a part of the community. But I'm getting back into being like an actual participant in the community now that my body is at a point where I can actually skate without killing myself.
I dig it. I dig it. I do nothing. It's just like, I'm always in the middle of something. Either, where's that data at? Or I gotta do a podcast real quick. I gotta research for a podcast.
We could talk about that all day.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
It's the corporate creative in us. It's the corporate creative. That's what it is.
Absolutely. This is one of the reasons I need to get a new computer, because it's like, this was right now. I'm working off of some jerry-rigged headless computer right now because I2 is just don't have the extra funds at a time. And I was like, I kind of need one. I don't know how I'm going to sort this. And now it's gotten to a point where
get you a Mac Mini. Get a Mac Mini. It's all the guts of the iMac without the actual price tag or the body, and you can plug everything you already have, and that's your setup at that point.
That's a good idea.
For fairly cheap with the last couple of years too.
That's a good idea.
I got you.
So that combination of being that corporate creative, speak about that a bit, of having the day job, but also having that creative pursuit, and how we try to balance them. Yeah.
So first and foremost, the balance is never consistent. I think that's a big piece, is that you will have balance, but it will not be consistent, and it might not even be frequent. So we got to it's like them's the breaks of what you got to do. So we know that's what's going on. But I, on top of being someone that is very passionate about advancement and protection and development of the artist and creative community, I also have a lifestyle that I want to live. I have a very particular lifestyle that I am not ashamed to admit that I want to live. It's not egregious by any means, but like, I live by myself. I live in the middle of Mount Vernon in a 1-bedroom apartment with a side patio. And that's one of my only things I have to do. I paid off my car this year. After unemployment, I paid off my car only 6 months after I planned on it. So that's money back in the bank. I only have my student loans and one credit card. So I've got fairly low debt, but like, I want to have, fun clothes from Bauhaus in New York. And I want to be able to see an Instagram ad and be like, you know what? I want that $40 bucket hat that I saw on this Instagram ad. Yeah, I'm going to buy that $40 bucket hat. I want to maybe I want to get some jewelry for my wrist, or I want to, get a different TV or change my couch out. Like, I don't deny the basic tendencies. I think personally, I'm one of the most basic creative arts type people that's ever out there. I like looking at nice cars. I don't care about owning them. I like eating nice meals. I won't always pay for them or be able to afford them. I like wearing nice clothes, but I'll buy them for cheap or I'll buy them secondhand. But that's my thing. Like, I live a corporate lifestyle because I like to be able to not worry about keeping the lights on. I like being able to know that I can plan to have my car paid off in a couple of years, or that my student loan debt or my credit card debt will be able to be paid for, and I can still have a decent place to go home at night. But I'm also a bleeding heart creative that wants to do some of the coolest, dopest shit. But I'm like, I also can't afford to do cool, dope shit if I'm constantly stressed out, thinking out how I'm going to getting my lights to stay on, or how I'm going to get food in my stomach. So I am an advocate for all creatives. It's not selling out, and it's not shilling yourself to have a day job, to have a salary job, to have a thing that provides your lifestyle, because the peace of mind that it gives you can only make your art better. The timing might suck, and the balancing of your time and scheduling is going to have to be a lot more intentional. Another buzzword, another magic word. But if you're the person that can figure that out, which admittedly not everybody is, and I'm not afraid to say that, those of us that find the balance get to have the best of both worlds in whatever capacity we can handle them. That's my thoughts on corporate creativity, on being a corporate creative, and finding jobs that are being corporate creative, because I get paid to be a creative project manager for a marketing firm in Boston now. I work remotely. I get to do the same thing I love doing, which is getting creative ideas out the door and into real life. But I get paid to do that. And then I get paid to do it on my own time. Like, why can't I get the best of both worlds and work to get a lifestyle where I can get both, and then bring everybody else to realize you can do it too?
that's the thing. That's one of the things I always kind of admire, the doing it on your own schedule, on your own time. And I would look at, like, I listen to a lot of stand-up comedy, and I would listen to how they describe, like, yeah, just kind of got up today. This is my job. I got up an hour ago, and I'm going to talk to you guys for an hour, and then I'm going to go home. And it's like, I kind of admire that. I admire not being on a clock. And I will say this last year has enabled me to kind of be able to balance those things and do stuff that kind of moves that creative pursuit in a different direction, and kind of just flex whatever hours I have. And it's like, okay, maybe I'll work 4 hours in the morning for my job, and then maybe I'll work 4 hours later in the day. And between those, I'll do a couple of interviews and not be stuck. I will find a way to make the time work better for me. And sometimes people just don't look at it like that. It's like, as long as I got my stuff done, that's all that really matters at the end of the day, and knowing what you're doing and knowing how you're going to do it. And yeah, I even echo the sentiment of knowing what you need. What are your base necessities? So like, I bought a house in my where I grew up at, and I bought it 5 years ago. So all the grants are now sorted out, and pretty much that's the only debt I have. No student debt, none of that stuff. And I bought a 2-bedroom. I live alone. The second bedroom was converted into a studio. And it's just like, I don't need to go there. I know how to do all of my equipment. I know my stuff, and I'm able to do my stuff. So when the place we were recording that big over there in, Station North or what have you.
Yep.
And, once that kind of like shut down and closed, I was like, oh, I'm just going to get a green screen, and I'm going to do this. And it'll just be fine. It'll be sorted because I have the space and I have the know-how, and I'm able to balance those two things. And it's been good. It's been good. So the last question that I have, this goes back to just advice. Advice. Before we get into some shameless plugs, you already started your plugs. I appreciate that. What advice would you give someone looking to improve their brand or image?
So I'm gonna double this with something else. So I think that it's good to have a couple of pillars to orbit your image and your branding around. And I think that it's also nice to have, a mantra or like something that you use to define how you go about your work. So to preface this, I've lived by this mantra since 2005, pretty much or so. I have it tattooed on my arm, but it's the phrase, "Let the works I've done speak for me." Like, that's the phrase that my late grandmother on my mother's side, she, it was the quote that was on her pamphlet for her obituary, for her funeral. That's like one of those things that's burned in my mind. Like, I remember that quote. I remember the way that I felt about that. I remember like the way that we got to where we got to that point in the funeral. And I was just like, that's something that I could really see myself. Like, it embodied this unspoken thing about me that I always was abiding by, which is, you don't have to care about what I say. You don't have to worry about how I say what I say or what I say. I can police myself. I can learn to be more articulate. But what you can't take away from me, because you can spin whatever I say. You can't spin what I did if I did good work, and it's undeniably good work. That is something that I think people pick up on. It's like, I don't care about having my name on it half the time. There's things that are in the city that are mainstays that I was around for the initial conversation of, I sparked the initial conversation of, or I was in the plans that got the thing off the ground. And I don't tell people about it because it doesn't matter. The work is what matters. That staple in the community is there now, thriving, and I had a part of it. The work that I did speaks, and that's what happens. But in terms of like advice, I've got a couple of things that I think that I go back on. First off, aside from being mindful and intentional, I think just being honest and being open to the fact that you got to have a sense of humor. You're going to go through phases and eras of your brand and your image that are absolute dog shit. And they're going to be the best ideas at the time. Before I was Brown About Town, I was L2P. Before I was L2P, I was this long ass Tumblr name that I pulled from Tumblr called Letters to Philemon. Like, it was a reference to the Bible, like the Bible book. And I had a whole thing written down and memorized of like how I articulated a random conversation I had in a church parking lot in my youth leader days. Because yes, I was also a youth leader back in the day, and how it just like spun into this thing that became a lesson about like mindfulness, acceptance, tolerance, and in essence, forgiveness with people. And I was like, okay, cool. That's a cool thing, but it's really long winded and really edgy. And it eventually got shortened to L2P because it was easier to shorthand. And then my friend joked about, I used to take pictures of my shoes everywhere that I would go. Like not even nice shoes, just me standing in places, geotagged at things I was doing. And he joked that my name, like I'm Brown About Town because my last name is Brown and I'm fucking everywhere. That was my premise. So I just, a couple years later, took it, ran it. Brown About Town was taken, but Brown About Town with an E was free. So I just adopted Brown About Town with an E. It's got a little pinky out on it. And I just said that's my brand. I am known for being everywhere, being in several places, and also being known for wherever I am is a place of interest or a place of substance or a place worth checking out. So it distilled itself over the iterations into something that is much less personally off-putting, but now I've got this whole hilarious and insightful narrative of how I got to this boiled down thing that really encapsulates me at my core. That's my big thing. But I also think that like be a team player in how you work with a star player mentality. Like that's a big part of it. It's like, I'm going to work with everybody because I want everybody to win. I want us all to eat and everyone's pockets to get full. That being said, I'm going to drag my nuts on you while I do it. Because I want everybody. And the thing is, I don't think that's a bad mentality to have because I want the best from everybody because I wouldn't have picked you if I didn't think you could do the best work possible for this shit. So it's like I expect I'm going to drag on you, not constantly, but my mentality is like, I have to do the best work of all of us on this thing. And in turn, do the same for me. Expect me to do my best, and I'm going to expect you to do your best. And in turn, we're going to keep raising the bar, and shit's going to get sweet. And I think, and like, that's one, I put substance earlier, take a break. I take like a 6-month sabbatical from photography every couple of years just to give myself time to like relax and take photos of like I want to take now. That's why I shoot film more and digital less. I take my time. And then last 2 things, be present in your communities, not communities. Don't just lurk. Don't just pull up when the right person's there. Be present, ask questions, ruffle feathers, be a part of people and be divergent where you need to be, but like be a voice inside your community. That way people know when you speak, like they'll at least pay attention and don't abuse that power, obviously, but like make yourself known as a voice. And then the last thing is, and this is my number one critique for a lot of Baltimore that a lot of people do well and more of us can be doing well. Act locally, think globally. I think that's a huge thing that we can do. Baltimore's already being viewed by a lot of places in the country and a lot of places in the world, but for a lot of things that are happening, which means we're already on the global stage. But let's think about ourselves in a global capacity while we're operating in a local fashion. I think that's really the best piece that I could say for the next level and the next groups of creatives that are going to come out, people that are going to brand and have images and carry the weight of the city on their shoulders wherever they go. Like, remember that you represent Baltimore and don't ever forget that, but also think, how can I take Baltimore in its best self to the rest of the world? And I think that's some really solid advice to help someone improve their brand and image. Like if you think about those and operate through those, people will look at you differently and you will have doors open that wouldn't normally open for people. And if they would open, they'll open quicker.
This has been great. I want to give you a chance to shamelessly, just make an ass out of yourself. Thank you for dropping these jewels, but shamelessly plug, where can you find you, your social media, all of that stuff. I know it's Brown About Town, but also hit them with it. Let them know what's up. What we got?
Yeah. So most everybody knows me as Brown About Town with an E at the end. That's how you find me. It is Brown About Town with an E at the end. Don't have to write that. BrownAboutTown.com is the website that links to most everything I do. I also operate under the DJ moniker and event planner moniker Southpaw. That's with a V because I can't get rid of everything that's edgy. You got to have something that's edgy in your repertoire. My phone number is the same as it is since I was 13 years old. So if you find me on the internet, take my number down, shoot me a text, shoot me a DM, ask me a question. I don't particularly care. I will answer it or find someone that can answer it for you. You can find me through searching for something, my DJ collective, Just Add Water, my nomadic pop-up DJ business with a lovely, phenomenal homie DJ Sun. You can find me doing anything and everything under the sun that anybody can find me at. And usually I'm just sharing everybody's stuff on the internet. If you want your stuff shared and it's of a caliber that I can work with it, send a link, put it to Brown About Town. I will look at it. I will share it. I will offer any insight that I can give to help you be the best person you can be, because I think I'm the shit and I want everyone else in Baltimore to think that they're the shit too and do work that lets everyone else know that Baltimore's the shit. That's my shameless plug.
That was a fire shameless plug. Thank you so much. So to do my sign off, thanks again for coming on to the podcast. This has been a treat. This has been a highlight of the day. You are the shit. For Aaron Brown, I am Rob Lee, saying that there's art in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.